The iPhone X was the phone of the decade that blew all other phone companies out of the water by revolutionizing it in every way. With the new design and the software specs, this iPhone represents the next decade of the cell phone industry. But the question is, can we still use it as a premium phone almost 3 years later? Hey guys, I'm Ethan from Alumni Tech 47, and today we are going to look at the iPhone X in depth, as well as if you can still use the iPhone X in 2020. Before we get started, make sure to check out my Instagram and Twitter at Alumni Tech 47. Links will be in the description so you can check me out. So the iPhone X was announced in September of 2017 at the Apple special event. No one knew that Apple was ever going to release such an awesome phone. It basically blew the iPhone 8 out of the water that was announced just 20 minutes before. But the iPhone X only lasted for 1 year. But should that mean that you shouldn't use it? No is the short answer, but to really answer that question, we need to take a closer look at this phone. Let's start off with the new, great design. The iPhone X has a stainless steel band going around the phone for the first time in over 7 years. This makes the phone look shiny as well as premium-like because steel is more durable than the aluminum that they've been using on their previous iPhones. And along with the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, you have the glass on the back that comes in two colors, space gray and white. I don't really know why Apple only sold the iPhone X in two colors, but they also only had 3 colors on the iPhone XS. The screen on the front is now an OLED panel with a Super Retina display. This means that there are blacker blacks because of the pixels being lit individually, but burn-in can happen if something is displaying on the phone for an elongated amount of time. The screen is 458 pixels per inch with a 2436 by 1125 resolution, but the phone now lacks a home button. You now have the Face ID that is more secure than Touch ID. It still works very well today and isn't too slow. It may not work as great of an angle as the current iPhones, but I can unlock the phone looking at it from the side of my camera in this shot here. The iPhone X also has fast charging as well as wireless charging. Both of these perform as well as you would expect with decent chargers of both kinds. Now let's talk about those cameras. The front-facing camera is now a 7 megapixel camera which can take portrait photos thanks to the Face ID technology. But really, Face ID just improves the portrait on only an AR scale. Comparing to other iPhones like the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, the quality of the portrait photo is not noticeable at all. The rear-facing cameras are both 12 megapixels that can record up to 4K at 60 frames per second. The Telephoto lens helps with portrait photos as well as just being another camera. I'll show you pictures from this iPhone X right now. You can see that the portrait photo of my camera and tripod is a little bit choppy. The iPhone does have a hard time filling in holes for their portrait bokeh effect, but it still does great on faces. Now this kind of leads into the specs of the iPhone X. The new Face ID uses various modules that detect your face and unlocks your phone. It is so secure that you can use it for payments, passwords, as well as other authentication processes. Now the iPhone 8 has the 2nd generation Touch ID that does authentication just as well. It's just that Face ID is more secure. Not that I'm against Touch ID, but the downside of Face ID is that you can use it when you have a mask on. But Touch ID won't work if you have gloves or if your hands are wet. With the new high-resolution display, the phone now has an excellent-looking bezel that was the thinnest at the time. With the higher resolution display, you can see more of your content, but since there is no home button, you will have to work the phone with a touch bar at the bottom to switch between apps. I personally like the switching between apps on the iPhone X and is much faster than the iPhone 8. You also have 3D Touch that I personally love. Using this new haptic feedback software integration on newer iPhones isn't as responsive as 3D Touch. But if you have a 3D Touch phone, the screen on the phone has to be a little thicker as well as to have a slightly bigger battery to run the feature. And that is why Apple is sadly killing it off. The internals of the iPhone X blew other phones out of the water, as I said. You have the A11 Bionic chipset along with 3GB of RAM, and that is still really good on today's standards. With those specs, you can play all the great games on the App Store as well as doing productivity tasks smoothly without stuttering. YouTube works great and even looks great on the eye with the OLED display. Apple is most likely going to keep iOS support on this phone for another 2 to 3 years. Other phones released at this time, like the Samsung Galaxy S8, don't even have Android 10 as well as the latest updates. The battery on this iPhone X is a 2716 mAh, which is decent. It doesn't last as long as say the iPhone XR or even the iPhone 11 Pro, but it gets the job done and isn't as bad as past iPhones. Now, using this phone a day with all the features is really nice to have. It's almost like my iPhone XR that I use every day. The only downside to the iPhone X from the XR and above is that it has a slightly worse camera, a somewhat worse processor, and a slightly worse battery. The iPhone XR does have a slightly worse screen, but it's not terribly worse. If you're looking at a used iPhone that has an OLED display and decent specs, the iPhone X is the cheapest option you'll get. They sell for as low as $350 on eBay in satisfactory condition. Just make sure that you are aware of the state of the phone and the refurbisher if you are buying refurbished. If you do get this phone, you'll be surprised at how new it still appears and performs. It still runs great on iOS 13 and will still run great for the next few years of iOS. But make sure that you put a case on this phone and a screen protector, because screens for this phone are still pricey and the back glass is hard to replace, but luckily those prices are going down, and this phone is decently easy to repair if you ever need to. And with that, I think I am done talking about the iPhone X. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure to leave a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and turn on the bell icon for video updates. Also consider checking out my Instagram and Twitter at AlumniTech47. Comment down below if you are using the iPhone X or ever had one. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.